one being a band. Don't be a dick. If you're a dick, no one will like you. I mean, it's really hard to say that, but that's where it's at. And even if you're not a dick, if the dude in your band is a dick, your tour manager is a dick, your friends are dicks, if you're not fun to be around, I mean, unless you're really, really good and something happens, you're not going to make it because we dealt with it, you know. I've sent promoters away from Flint. I've sent bands out, like, that drove hours on labels that showed up and they were just terrible. I'm like, first of all, I don't know who you are. Second of all, I do know your booking agent. That's why you're playing here. Third of all, you're being a dick. I don't need you. Have a good one. And that's a harsh realization to come to. We've run into it with tour managers before, and that's obviously much farther down the road, but if the guy who works for you, represents you, is a jerk, you gotta go. I mean, you might be able to say, but he's gotta go, and you probably have some sort of contract with him.
Was it Yellow Card that happened with? Which band was it?
It happened with two bands with me specifically, and I'll walk you guys through it. I hit booking shows at a critical time in music right now, right? I hit at the cusp of My Chemical Romance, Avenged Sevenfold, Under Oath, Coheed and Cambria, Yellow Card. All these bands were working with some dudes who I booked a birthday show for a band on Vision Records that nobody had ever heard of called Fairweather. But I knew that the Strider did a good job when they played here, and tons of kids showed up. And I knew that Saves the Day was on Vision Records. So I booked this band Fairweather because they were on the same label. Their agent, Nick, ended up being, I mean, he's one of the biggest booking agents in the country now. But he always kind of funneled shows through to me. A, number one, because I wasn't a dick. And B, because when his bands were done, they were very happy with what we were able to provide. There was no clear channel, there was no merch cuts, there was none of that weird stuff on the back end. Like, I was here to let bands play music and to let kids come to shows. So we ran into an issue. It was actually Chris Everson's fault, the first one. He went away on tour with Brandon and shot me some information. It was like, hey, Corey Christopher has this band called Jettison Red. And I was like, cool, never heard of them. And he was like, they have a song on the American Pie 2 soundtrack. And I was like, all the more reason to not do this show. But you will do shows for bands that you don't like so that you can afford to do shows for bands that you do like. That's what you're going to learn. And so they showed up, and they showed up in like a Winnebago. And then a truck pulled up behind them, and it was a tour manager. And they were like, there's our tour manager. And they went away. And they're like 19, 20-year-old kids. They were just trying to be a band. And they were on a record label. And the record label had assigned this guy to him. And he wanted a bunch of ridiculous things. Well, I sent a contract over, you know, cool, I never signed it. I think Joel was involved in this too. I sent a rider over. Okay, your rider had beer and water from, I couldn't get, like, I got water, that's weird. Well, we wanted this water. This whole conversation stemmed from a specific kind of water that this band didn't care about. But the tour manager, being a jerk, was like, this is what you agreed to. And I was like, show me one that I've ever signed. I never sent a contract back. I never sent a rider back. I just didn't.
The last contract I remember us signing was 1985 when we booked Black Flag the second time.
Yeah, so, yeah, I didn't do it. There was no point. That's not what it was about. But this guy kept pushing and pushing. And finally, at one point, we were standing in front of what is the Row building now, is the Carlton building. He said, cool, so you're either going to take care of this or the band is going to leave. Like, I ran sound at the House of Blues. And I was like, awesome, you're in Flint, Michigan. This isn't the House of Blues. That's not going to happen. Have a good day. And the band was like, whoa, we don't want to leave. So they were behind, we had this little backstage area that wasn't a backstage area, but they were behind the curtain. Because that's what a band who thinks they're popular thinks that they should do. They were like hanging out in the green room. Except for it wasn't really the green room, it was just storage. And it finally got to a point where I'm a pretty even-keeled guy, but we had words, and finally I was just like, have a good one. I don't need you here, I'm not going to pay you. You guys can go. And he, after, wasn't so nice.
That's the PG-13.
Yeah, So I threatened to fight the dude because I was like 19 years old and I didn't care. And I got a phone call from Chris Everson, who's working or with Brandon. He's like, Corey Christopher just called me. Did you just threaten to kill the tour manager? And I said, yeah, probably I did. He's sitting in his truck and he's scared to come get his laptop out of the club. All right, so then we hashed it all out and the band was like, listen, we don't even like him. He's just like, that's what he does everywhere we go, and then nobody likes us. And I was like, I couldn't imagine why. Like, that dude sucks. And so he took off, drove back to North Carolina where he was from. The band continued on tour. The record label paid people to come to the shows, so the club made money, which is something that a lot of record labels do for upstart bands that most upstart bands don't know about. But, I mean, it all boiled down to this dude was being a jerk and it was potentially harming that band's credibility with other promoters. Do you think I would ever have them back? I mean, they were nice dudes, but I don't have to deal with that. Like, I'm operating under the idea that the city of Flint doesn't know I exist. So if I fight you, you can go away. You know, like it was a very different time. And then we had an issue with Yellow Card, same booking agent, but their bass player, whose brother owned the label that they were on, wanted to drink beer on stage. The third time I told him no, I walked in the back door and he was standing on stage drinking a Coors, and I promptly grabbed him by his shirt and walked him out the back door. And said that we didn't need them to play again. Again, phone call from Chris Everson, who was basically my babysitter at the time, and told me that I shouldn't threaten people, and it wasn't polite, and that they could play if he understood the rules now. So,
well, the real point is friends don't let friends drink Coors anyway.
Yeah, that's the moral of the story.
There's no alcohol at the local.
Yeah. I mean, that's always been a stipulation, but those people were jerks, and that's what happens. You don't make friends.
So the real big point for you guys that are interested in getting involved in getting your band booked or something is that you're all jazzed about playing your music, and we're jazzed about having you play it. But if you really want to be successful in working with promoters and places, you need to think about what's motivating them to book you as well. And part of what motivates them to book you isn't just the really cool song. It's how things work together for them. It's the night. It's all sorts of different things. So you guys have to kind of think a little bit about what the promoter's looking for in a show as well.
All
not just what you want to accomplish. Because no matter what we try to do, we'll try to teach each other what kind of experience we get. Being successful in music is still, 75% walking, 25% amazing talent. So that's what this networking thing, this research thing.
That's everything. I think everybody that's here is either knows this or it will behoove you to know that it's not about the music. It's not about, whether, because it's subjective. People aren't going to like necessarily the sound you make, and you may not like the sound they make, but we're all here because we're trying to make a show happen or we're trying to make a tour happen. And like you said, don't be a dick. It's the golden rule. When you're out on the road as a band member, people aren't going to remember, they might remember Fido, I don't know, but they remember whichever band I'm with. And everybody in that band, whether it's a 4-piece band or whether we've got a road manager, merch guy, whatever, everybody is going to be named or remembered by that band who are a bunch of dicks or by that band who is really cool. And you have to, you have to treat people the way you want to be treated.
There's a long list of really talented musicians and really competent bands that sound great that never got invited back to the local because they were jerks.
Right.
What you guys at the beginning. And wide example. And there's a lot of really terrible bands that could barely make it through a set and needed a lot of practice as musicians.
And we still talk about them today.
Who came back and played every month after month because
right.
They were easy to work with.
And they got better and better, and it feeds the creativity because they're staying busy. It's a self-fulfilling thing, and like I said, the most important part about it is not the music. It's not what you do when you're on stage. It's what you do when you walk in the door. It's what you do when you send off an email.